Welcome ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to check out the Magicka Sorcerer PV build. This is a group setup meant to be played in dungeons and trials because you're relying on a healer and a tank. If you're looking for a solo build, I recommend checking out my solo Sorc build on alcasthq.com. I also recently made a build video and gameplay, all that stuff, it's there. Link like always in the description below. We have a lot of things to go through. I will showcase all the DPS tests that I made. We will go through the whole build, just the general setup. And at the end I will also have a beginner setup in case you're a new player. I would recommend watching the whole video though, because there's a lot of things like rotation, sustain, different monster sets. Just a lot of explanation going out. And the most important at the end, the outfit. You can find all the timestamps in the description, by the way, will make it easier to navigate. Let's take a look at all the DPS tests I did plenty of them. So first, the setup 1. I made 3 tests with 2 pets, 1 pet and 0 pets, and you actually can see the different DPS. I want to note the setup itself pretty much was the same in terms of gear, like I always used Siroria perfect on the front bar, and 5-piece Mother Sorrow, Morphed Infernal and the perfect Maelstrom stuff. Yes, this here is the perfect target dummy humper set, that's how people usually call it. We have Bloodthirsty Jewelry and Essence of Spell Power, so we can really benefit from all the damage modifiers. And as you can see, the 2 pet setup got me almost to 93k DPS. Then with 1 pet we have like 91.6k, and 0 pets we have 89k. So all these are fairly close together, and depending whether you like pets or not, you can actually choose to just not run any, or you can run 2 or just 1. The DPS difference is not that big. Most of the times people recommend running like either 1 or 2 pets though, because it's pretty much free damage. And again, all these DPS tests, they will be later in the video. I will line them up with hand camera as well so you can see my movement. Then we have the setup 2. This is like the maximum cheese with Thrassian Stranglers, got us to about 114k. This was with 20 stacks, please keep that in mind. Then we have more realistic setups that are more common in raid scenarios. So setup 3 is with False God. And this time we front bar Mother Sorrow, Morphed Infernal and perfect Maelstrom weapons. Here you see we got to 86k, so we lose quite a bit of damage. But please don't underestimate it when we compare False God versus Siroria. False God is a more commonly used set in trials. Siroria is more commonly used on target dummies because, well, it's a perfect target dummy humper set. That's just how it is. The setup 4, once again very interesting. 5 Julianos, 5 Mother Sorrows with 2 more and the Maelstrom on the back bar, which got us to 88. That was quite surprising, to be honest, especially considering that like the 0 pet setup above with Siroria got us to 88.7. But obviously this was with 2 pets, so yes, we lose a little bit of damage, but actually not a lot. And when you look at False God versus, so the setup 3 versus the setup 4, it's actually even better. Now please keep in mind, obviously, because we use sustain food for the target dummy humping, False God 5-piece bonus kind of gets like nullified, because you don't really need the sustain, especially because we're using blood for blood with this setup. In a real scenario where sustain is more important, False God will actually be better than Julianos. However, this should show you, if you don't have access to False God, just use Julianos. It's not gonna be a lot worse. In some scenarios when you're target dummy humping, even better. Then I also made a parse with the beginner setup that I have on the website, which is a very basic setup. 5 Julianos, 4 Magnus, 3 willpower, arcane jewelry and the spell power potions. and I got to 72k, and all these tests here were done on the big target dummy. That's this. Quickly looking at the beginner setup itself, like where I used the easy rotation, and these two tests were done on the small target dummy, which only has 3 million health. So the beginner setup with the simplified rotation almost hit 40k. I will showcase this at the end of the video, the beginner setup. And then I also did the last parse with Siroria, so pretty much the best in slot target dummy hamper setup, but also on the 3 million dummy, and I got to like 55k. So you can kind of understand all these things. A target dummy versus a raid setup. So there's like two key differences. That's like the health, and most people use Siroria on the target dummy, but they use False God in a raid. So when we look at the health, that is different because people use different buff foods. On a target dummy, everybody is using Ghastly Eyeball because it gives you 4592 Magicka and 459 Magicka recovery. So it just boosts your Magicka recovery like crazy, and you also get the max Magicka. The target dummy doesn't deal damage, so you don't need any health. Now the main reason why that's being done is, in a raid, in a good group, you will have better sustain. Because things like Hollow Fang and Symphony of Blades will be present, which boosts your sustain like crazy. And therefore, everybody's using the Arteum Pickled Fish Bowl or the cheaper version, which gives you max health and max Magicka. And that's why most Magicka setups have around 19 to 20k health in a raid, and on a target dummy it's around 12k. That's the difference. A lot of people get confused with this. The next topic, potions. People underestimate these a lot, like they do with buff food. You lose so much power if you don't use the right potions. Now here, Essence of Spell Power. If you want to become an endgame player, you gotta drink these every 45 seconds. Yes, they're expensive, however, that's just part of the journey. You gotta pick flowers, or it's just gotta make money somehow. Like usually people craft them themselves, but if they have enough money, they just buy them. They're very expensive. Now why are they so popular? They give Major Sorcery 20%, they give Major Prophecy 10% spell crit, then we get 7582 Magicka just with a button press. That's so much sustain on top of the 20% Magicka recovery. And you can keep these potions up, like these effects, 100% of the time. That's crazy. And how that's being done is, you gotta go to the alchemy and crafting in medicinal use. When using potions, resulting effects last 30% longer. You need this. It takes about 15 minutes to level this up if you know how. I have a guide on alcasthq.com in the crafting section. I will also put the link in the description. Everybody needs this. If you want a combat ready character, you gotta get this, because once again, potions are very important. What do you do if you can't afford these expensive potions, or like when you're not doing very difficult content? So there is two options. Zorks have a very nice ability called Critical Surge. This has two effects. First off, it gives you the Major Sorcery buff, 20% spell damage boost. And then on top of that, while active, dealing critical damage heals you for 3300. When you look at my solo build, this is like, I slapped this on, because first off, it gives me the spell damage, and it also gives me insane healing. Like, we have such a high spell critical rating, it will almost proc on cooldown all the time. This is very powerful. Like I mentioned, in a group, in a raid, you might not really use that, because you rely on heals from your healer, and you have the spell damage from the potions. So you can actually slot something else instead of this. Because again, every time you slot something that doesn't deal damage, you lose damage. Next up, when we're going to the to the Mages Guild, you have Inner Light. So you could slot this as well. When you read the second text, while slotted, your max magic is increased by 5%, and you gain Major Prophecy, increasing your spell critical rating by 10% spell crit. Like 2191 equals 10% spell crit. So that's where you could get Major Prophecy. So that way you could use the very cheap potions, so you still get the huge Magicka sustain boost. On that note, let me quickly explain the different buff foods. So I talked about Ghastly Eyeball, how that's a target dummy humper buff food or drink. And Arteum Pickled Fishbowl is the preferred buff food for dungeons and trials, because it gives you so much extra health and max Magicka. Now, this one is a little bit expensive, so if you can't afford this, you're going to the next version, Mistral Banana Bunny Hash. These names, Jesus. And when we compare these, this one gives us 5,600, this one gives us 5,300. Right? And then that's health. Magicka 5,100, 4,900. That's a very small difference. But this one costs, like 100 of these cost like 2,000 gold. And 100 of these, I don't know, like 50k or something. So it's a huge difference. You also have other options. If you still have sustain issues, but you kind of like, you want a mix between these two, you could go for Witch Mothers. Also a very cheap buff food, and you can use this one from level 1 to level 50, or like to your max level. That's the buff food we usually use for the beginner guides, like when we're leveling. Gives you max Magicka, max health, and Magicka recovery. So it has all three things included. It won't boost it as much as the others, but it has all three things. Another option is Longfin Pasty, which gives you max health, max Magicka, and max stamina. In case you're a guy that likes to dodge roll a lot to avoid damage, then that might be for you. So there is plenty of options. You just gotta use them. Next up, the overall build. I will go through like the sets, champion points, skills, and so on, so you kinda understand how you should build your Magicka sword and what options you have. And please, the website is always more up to date. Like when there's a new DLC, the builds on the website are always updated one day or like a week before the new patch comes. So always make sure to go check it out, because it's very easy to modify builds depending on the changes Zenimax makes, but I can't edit a video easily and it takes a lot longer to create the video. Boon the Shadow Mundustone, best for group setups. It just pushes your damage the most. I already talked about potions and buff foods, I'm not gonna talk about that again. Race, High Elf will give you the most damage, because 258 spell damage and 2k max Magicka, that's the most damage modifiers you can get. And you also get a little bit sustain, but only a tiny bit. Now, Breton would be my secondary choice, which has a little bit less damage, but way more sustain. So if you're struggling or you're not sure if you have enough sustain, pick Breton. Other races like Dark Elf, Kashyyyk, even Argonian, they all work. As long as it's a Magicka based race, it will do fine. I listed them all up on the website as well. For this setup, we're a Vampire, because we're using Blood for Blood. It just need to be stage 1. You should only be stage 1, because the higher the stage you are, the more your abilities will cost. But stage 1 is more than enough, and that's the ability we want. Deals up to 100% more damage based on your missing health. Now you will see when I do parsing that I actually often drop my health on purpose, just to get more damage out of these things, like out of the Blood for Blood ability. Let's take a look at the different setups. So as you can see here, I have a lot. Now these are all the 2 pet setups, because it's the most efficient setup. So here we have the pretty much the perfect target dummy Humper setup. Mother Sorrow, fully barred, so on the body. And then Siroria on front bar. Because you're just standing and the proc is very easy to keep up. When you look at this, let me actually kill my little guy here. Place this one a little bit over here. When Siroria procs, it leaves this circle. So on a target dummy, or let's say a stationary fight, this set is very powerful. But most of the times it's not used in a raid, and that's because you have to move around a lot. And then you might miss the circle, and all your stacks are gone. It can be used, but you need to be a good player to make it work. That's why most people go with a false god setup. Anyway, the reason why Siroria is so powerful is because you can gain 20 stacks and each stack gives you 30 spell damage. So that's 600 spell damage. With modifiers, it's probably closer to like 700-800. Very, very strong. Mother Sorrow, always very good. It just boosts up your spell critical so much. It's very strong. Then we have Morphed Infernal. This one just hits like a truck. We will check out the parse later, like when we get into the DPS section, so you kind of can see where the damage comes from. By far the best for the Magicka Sorcerer. Just keep in mind, it might not work on all bosses because it misses, because of hitbox issues and so on. The reason this is so strong, we get Daedric Prey on a Sorcerer, which boosts our pet's damage. And it actually also works on things like Maw, the Infernal. So it deals even more damage. Tanks might hate you because the thing is so big. Let me try to get it to proc. Yeah, and when the tank has to stand here and there's like one or two of these, it's very annoying. But yeah, you know, everything for damage, I guess. Back bar, the Maelstrom stuff. Always the best. Now in terms of traits, Divine, all max Magicka and Chants. Then on the jewelry, spell damage with Bloodthirsty. Bloodthirsty increases your execute damage by so much. You could argue to also run Arcane on a Sorc, but Bloodthirsty still performs a little bit better because the Magicka pets, they scale better from max Magicka. But Bloodthirsty still gave me better results. Then on the front bar, you want Precise with a Flame Damage Enchantment, aka Fiery Weapon. And on the back bar, Infused Weapon Damage to boost your spell damage by 452. So it's closer to like 500 with all the modifiers. And once again, we apply this, we swap to the front bar. And it will actually reproc. You see it actually reactivated, even though we were not on the back bar anymore. That's why Infused Weapon Damage and Chants are so strong, because they will keep proccing. The blockade will keep proccing the weapon damage enchantment on the back bar. Very strong. And if you don't do that, you miss out on like 500 free spell damage. And that's a lot of spell damage out the window if you don't use it. That's this. Is there anything else? Whether you have perfect or imperfect versions, it really doesn't matter. You don't lose a lot. This is the Siroria setup. When we run False God, we are fully barring False God this time, and we are front barring Mother Sorrow. This is pretty much the standard raid setup, which is used most commonly. Why False God? It just boosts your sustain by so much. Because the 5-piece bonus reduces the cost of your magic abilities by 8%. And then when somebody dies, it's 2150 extra Magicka. Once again, perfect versus imperfect. It's only 1000 Magicka difference, which is like 1-2% difference in damage. The 5-piece bonus is the same on both the sets, and that's what you want. So go get it. If you have Sunspire, do normal Sunspire, you can easily get this set. Why do we fully bar this? The reason... Okay. some reason my weapon swap button doesn't... Okay, there we go. Weird. Anyway. When you look at abilities like the Mystic Orb or the Unstable Wall, they're very expensive. So you want to make sure to have False God on both like bars, because the expensive abilities get out, like the cost reduction benefits the most. But if you only front bar False God, you miss out on all the cost reduction on the back bar, which are your most expensive abilities. And that's not good. So that's this. And then I have a few other setups, like I said, Julianos. I just do 5 Julianos here. Still 2 more, and Mother Sorrow front bar again. Let me elaborate on why always Inferno. So like when you look at group builds, they always run Fire Staves, and when you look at my solo builds, I run Shock Staves. The reason why Fire Staves are always used in group setups, you usually optimize damage for a single target. And when you look at the fire stuff, the benefit, Ancient Knowledge, equipping a flame staff increases your damage done with single target abilities by 8%. So it simply boosts your damage more in terms of single target damage. And the reason why I use Shock Staves on solo builds is you get 8% more AoE damage, and a shock heavy attack, it just connects easier to the enemy, and you can restore resources. Every time you do a heavy attack, you get around 3000 Magicka back. And the fire stuff heavy attack is just the slowest, and it only deals single target, whereas a shock AoE stuff damage is AoE damage. That's the difference. I might do a video on that soon, because there's a lot of people have been asking me this. Same thing on the back bar. The blockade. Unstable Wall of Fire deals additional damage to burning enemies. I think it's like 20%. And then Unstable Wall of Storms sets concussed enemies off balance. But that's usually done by healers or tanks. So you can just use a fire stuff to boost your damage. But in a solo environment, the shock thingy will be better. So that's like the main reason. How to set it up when we have Thrassian Stranglers. It's pretty much the same thing, except we will not have a Morphed Infernal anymore. So we place a Mother Sorrow piece here, and then we run Thrassian Stranglers. So you lose out on the monster set damage, but if you can get a lot of stacks, like after like 3 or 5 stacks, Thrassian Stranglers already becomes more powerful. So yeah, that would be the other spec. Once again, it's a lot of setups. If you want to test them all, do it on the public test server. You can build all these things, and you don't have to waste any transmute stones, gold platings, and all these things. When we look at the very basic setup, and you don't have a monster set, you use 2 Magnus and then another piece here on the back bar. So you get 4 pieces. You have 3 willpower, and once again, Julianos. And people, like when you join a guild, you can ask them to craft these and you will be good to go. So anyway, that's enough about this. I will talk about the monster sets in a second. 81 in Thaumaturge, 61 Master at Arms, 14 Staff Expert, 9 Erosion, 49 Elemental Expert, and 56. You can play around with this. I also do have 300 champion point setups on the website and like 600 in case you're not max level. Depending how much damage comes your damage over time effects. You could actually put a little bit more points in Master at Arms to benefit more from direct damage. But we have a lot of damage over time effects, so I just leave it there. And when we have 81 points here, we will also benefit from 10% extra damage when off balance is applied. Then 61, 61, 100 in Arcanist just to get more Magicka recovery. 37, 11, 49, 49, 48, 43, 81. It's a very basic setup. In the beginner section on the website, we have explanations on champion points. If you're new to this, it's all there. Go read it. Skill setup. First off, Sorc has a few very important or interesting passives, I should say. We get Unholy Knowledge, so it reduces health, magic, and stamina cost by 6%. Jesus, that's so much. Whatever. This is actually nice. After blocking an attack, your next health, magic, or stamina ability costs 15%. Nice, that's cool. When you cast a dark magic ability, you grant Minor Prophecy to you and your group, increasing your spell critical by 1320 for 20 seconds. That's... what's that? 6%, I think. Yeah, 6%. That's a lot for the whole group. So if you have 12 people and all the damage dealers benefit from this passive, that's a lot of extra crit. Next up, Power Stone, 15% ultimate cost reduction. It's just so good. Expert Summoner, if you use Pet, we get 8% max health. So now I'm at 18.4k. I use a Pet. It goes to 19.5. Very nice. Freebie. Storm Calling. 10% Magicka recovery just out of nothing. 5% shock damage. And here Amplitude. Increases your damage done against enemies by 1% for every 10% current health. So at 100% you will deal 10% more damage. It's very powerful. It's just like, it keeps going on. Expert Mage. Increases your weapon and spell damage by 2% for each sorcerer ability. Like, there's so many good passives in here. Like, it's crazy. Don't forget the light armor passives. There's a lot of good stuff. Extra penetration, extra crit. Like, there's just, Jesus. And then heavy armor. We do run one piece heavy armor. So you want to get Juggernaut. Often when people come into our Discord, they ask, well, how do you have so much health? People forget that I run a heavy armor piece. And I use Juggernaut. It gives me 2%. Same thing with Undaunted. Because we run 5 light, 1 heavy, 1 medium. We get 6% overall more resources because of that passive. Often people also don't have Undaunted. And then they don't run the right buff food. And that's where they lose a lot of health. There's so many small modifiers that you can easily miss out. And then like 20k health turn into 16k very fast because of all these modifiers. So yes, Mage's Guild, you kinda want this. Shooting Star is nice. There is a passive called Magicka Controller. Increases your max Magicka and Magicka recovery by 2%. So just by slotting this, I get 2% more max Magicka. And if you want to slot Inner Light, you get another 2% on top of the 5% from the ability itself. When we are going to the target dummy parsing, you will actually see the different skills. So, like when I have 2 pets, and if I don't have 2 pets, I will actually slot Bound Ages to give me just a little bit more max Magicka. So all my abilities deal more damage and so on. But you will see that when the parsing happens. This skill setup, it's a very simple, I will talk about entropy as well. Crystal Frag, this one. So when I use Blood for Blood, or any ability for that matter, not Blood for Blood, sorry. It has a chance to proc Crystal Fragments. We do not hardcast this. No, that's no bueno. Only use this when it procs, so it's instant cast. That's how you wanna roll. Why? When you read the second text, casting any other magic ability has a 35% chance of causing your next Crystal Fragments to be instant. Deal 33% more damage and cost 50% less. I mean, yeah, okay. The only downside to this setup is it won't proc as often because we use Blood for Blood and it costs health. And the requirement is Magicka ability. So it can either proc from Daedric Prey or the Familiar. That's it. If you don't want to use Blood for Blood, you could use Elemental Weapon. Then it will proc more often. Or Force Pulse. Daedric Prey, very powerful. it deals so much damage and it buffs the pet's damage. This is a pet, this is a pet, this is a pet. And if you have the Morphed Infernal monster set, it also counts as a pet. And it deals a lot of explosion damage. Blood for blood. So some people like it, some not. I will say this, on a Magicka Sorc, it will actually benefit you less compared to other classes, because you miss out on a lot of Crystal Frag procs. However, Blood for Blood makes sustain so piss easy, because it costs health. And if you're in a group, your healer will heal you anyway, so you're at 100% health all the time. So you can just save a lot of sustain through this, and it still deals a little bit more overall damage. So make sure to go get it if you don't have it. But again, on the website, the build on the website also has like a non-vampire setup. Then we have the Volatile Familiar. It just deals a lot of AoE damage, and even if you're not, like same with the Bird, we look at both of these abilities. The Bird itself, it just uses this attack. We actually never activate the Bird, it's not worth it. But the Scamp, AoE damage is both nice and also for single target, so you constantly want to keep the Scamp ability up. It lasts 10 seconds, it's very easy to keep up. And this rotation itself, it's also not that hard. So yeah, it's just a lot of passive damage you get out of this. Let me run away real quick, so the minions are following me. Shooting Star, you can use this on trash fights, deals a lot of impact damage. But in a single target fight, we always use Storm Atronach. It simply deals the most damage, and it also gets buffed by Daedric Prey. Duration is very long, 28 seconds. And if you're in a group, an ally can activate the synergy and he will gain Major Berserk for 8 seconds. That's 25% more damage. So good. Like, this class is so well thought out. Like, there's so much good things in here. Barber Trap. If you're in a melee fight, you can use the trap to get minor force. However, most of the times I prefer using Channeled Acceleration, which provides the same buff, but it lasts 35 seconds. So when there's a lot of movement around, I usually prefer Channeled, and if there is just stationary fights, I usually prefer Barber Trap to apply it. Structured Entropy. On a target dummy, you want to use this, especially with Blood for Blood, because if you want to keep using this, you need to heal yourself somehow. And the Entropy kinda does this. Bind an enemy with chaotic magic, dealing 18k magic damage for 12 seconds and healing you for 1288 every 2 seconds. So that's where you get the healing from. In a raid, the healer will keep you alive even when you spam Blood for Blood, and then you can use Mystic Orb. Deals a lot more damage, single target and AoE wise, so you want to use this. So when you look a Magicka Sorc in a raid, he will always use Mystic Orb, but on a target dummy it's probably going to be Entropy, as long as people use Blood for Blood. Unstable Wall of Fire, like I mentioned before, deals a buttload of damage. Procs our weapon damage enchantment on the back bar, and also when we have like a good setup with a Maelstrom weapon, it boosts our light attack damage by a lot. Like, if you don't have the Maelstrom weapon, you lose like 6 to 7k light attack DPS. It's that powerful. You can get the normal Maelstrom stuff, like an imperfect one, from normal Maelstrom Arena. It's very easy to get. If you have the DLC, obviously. I just recommend getting ESO Plus and you're good to go. Other possibilities. So if you lack sustain, you could use Dark... Which one is it? Yes, this one here, Dark Conversion. It turns stamina into magic and health. However, I still prefer using Spellsum because it's instant cast. Drains health, gives you Magicka back. That's an easy way to increase your sustain. So that's the whole setup, pretty much. Monster sets. Like I mentioned, Morph the Infernal, most of the times the best choice. Deals so much damage, and it also even gives us more damage because of Daedric Prey from the Sorc. Skill line. What other options do you have? There is so much good options on Magicka setups, it's kinda crazy. Balorg, what does it do? So when you activate it, you get a buttload of spell damage and penetration. This is only good in niche applications, so if you know you can burn down a boss in a very short amount of time, and you have like your full ultimate points stacked, then this might be the right thing, because it will give you such a huge boost for a short amount of time. It's basically a burst set, right? But if it's a long fight, this is not good. So it's only very niche application. Grofdar deals a lot of AoE damage, so on trash fights this can actually be very handy. And single target wise, it actually also deals decent damage. Iceheart, most of the times I use this in solo builds because it gives you a shield for free. But even in dungeons and trials, if you often die, use this. It will save your ass so many times. Trust me, it's very good. Elambris can be nice. Very easy to proc and deals decent damage. Then we have Slimecraw. In a group, the healers usually give you minor berserk, so most of the times it's not used there unless you have to go somewhere where a healer might not be present for a minute or two, and then this might become handy because minor berserk increases your damage by 8%. And that's really nice. Walking Scoria is another nice set, gives you a penetration bonus on the one piece, that's very strong. And it also deals overall very good damage. Then we have Sun, which is pretty much the second strongest after Infernal Guardian. Like after this here. Not Infernal Guardian, Morph Infernal, sorry. Very single target focused. Sometimes has hitbox issues, like it doesn't hit, for example in Sunspire. The dragons, it never really connects because the hitbox is weird. This one has a similar issue with dragons, it's like the dragon hitbox is just very weird. But you gotta figure that out yourself, ask your raid leader what monster set you should use or what you should not use and so on. And you will be good to go. Rotation and sustain. There's a few things I want to talk about: animation cancelling, like light attack weaving, and weapon swap animation cancelling. A few important things that you need to understand. There's also a guide on alcasthq that explains this more in depth. You can check it out, it's in the beginner section. Let's take a look at weapon swap animation cancelling first. I don't know, let's take Daedric Prey. So this is the full animation. Now when you weapon swap cancel this, did you see? It actually went off, but you barely saw the animation. Full animation, weapon swap. Way faster. So you need to learn this. Press stability and then immediately activate the weapon swap button. Because this one, too long. You're gonna lose damage. You need to weapon swap cancel it. If you weapon swap, obviously. Light attack weaving. So at the bottom right side you see LA per seconds. So during my DPS parses, you will see that how much I have. Everything above 0.9 is very good. Everything above 8, like 0.8, is like average to good, and everything below is pretty shit. Now, it will come with time. Like, the more you practice, the better you will get. Once you get over 0.8, it's very nice. Like, you're gonna be very good and most likely also happy. So how do you achieve this? How do you practice this? Practice light attack, press an ability. Just like, don't do any rotation whatsoever. Just do the light attack, ability. Do it very slow. Light attack, ability, light attack, ability. And then do it faster, faster, till you get to like that threshold. In the DPS parses you will see I'm a clicker, so I constantly spam my light attack button. If you do it too fast, spamming your ability, like the light attack will not go out anymore. You gotta find that perfect sweet spot. And that's how you do it. Light attack, ability. Light attack, ability. Light attack, ability. Light attack, ability. Gotta practice this. So that's these two things, and that works with pretty much any ability. Blockade, slow. Blockade, weapon swap. I mean, look how much faster it is. Now once again, if you're not animation cancelling, you might lose 10-20% damage. It's not the end of the world. But if you want to min-max, you kind of want to learn it. That's what makes the game fun for me. Just increases the pace. In terms of rotation, it's a dynamic one. It's kind of hard to explain. You reapply your dots on cooldown pretty much. Unstable, structured, barber trap and volatile familiar. And then you use your spammable and pray. Now one thing, crystal fragments, you only activate this when it procs. So when I activated my Daedric Prey, and then I will use crystal fragments. I might reactivate my volatile familiar, Daedric Prey. Crystal Frag did not proc, it doesn't matter. That means we will just spam blood for blood more. Right? That's pretty much the whole thing. You want to keep your volatile familiar up and the Prey on the front bar. When Crystal Frag procs, you activate Crystal Frag. Then the second part on the back bar. The trap, the wall and entropy. So you have 3 dots to keep up on the back bar. It's not really a lot. Like, it might be hard at the beginning, and in the beginner section I have a static rotation if it's too difficult. But once you learn to keep up your dots, not that hard. It's a little bit more tricky on console, because you don't have a dot tracker, which actually makes it quite a lot more difficult. But what I recommend doing on console is just play around Unstable Wall of Fire, 10 seconds. So every time the Unstable runs out, you reapply it, you reapply Structured, you also reapply the Pet, and then Daedric Prey. So you rotate around 10 seconds, Unstable Wall, Structured Entropy, yes it's 12 seconds, but if you don't have a dot tracker, just reactivate it when you use this. Same thing with the Familiar, just activate it on the front bar. And then the only thing you really have to keep up is Daedric Prey, and you always hear a sound when it explodes. It's quite obvious, and the Crystal Frag, same thing. Has a very apparent animation. But yeah, then, if you're on PC, yeah, an action duration reminder, that's where you see all these dots, very easy to keep things up. Go to settings, let's see, gameplay, quick cast ground abilities. On. Always have this on. It doesn't really matter that much right now because we're not using like liquid lightning or something. But the Atronach. Like I only need to press the ability once and it will immediately go off. If you have this setting on off, it will actually require 2 clicks. That means you lose time. We don't want to lose time. And yeah, maybe another thing, combat. Ability bar always show. Very important. Let me run away real quick so the pet's de-aggro. But yeah. I recommend watching my parsing, because there you see how the rotation works. It's like reapplying dots. Activate Crystal Frag when it procs. That's pretty much it. Spam blood for blood. Beginner section will have a static rotation. In terms of sustain, if you don't want to use blood for blood, you might have more issue with sustain. What can you do? Like I mentioned, Dark Conversion increases your Magicka. return. Mage's Guild, Spell Symmetry. Gives you Magicka back, instant cast. Like when we have this on the back bar, I don't know, somewhere here. Full animation, when I animation cancel this, it's very fast. And it restores a lot of Magicka. I activate this. Yeah, I didn't really see it, but it's like 3000. Heavy attack. You go low on sustain. Heavy attacking is always an option. Every heavy attack restores 3000 Magicka. And if the enemy is off balanced, it gives you 6000 Magicka back. Use your potion, 7582. You could use a buff food or a drink that has Magicka recovery included. That should be enough. If it's still not enough, you could use a Magicka recovery glaive on your jewelry, even though I don't recommend it. Just spam spell sim and you're good to go. Or the dark conversion, which is a channeled ability, but it also heals you at the same time. So it's actually pretty good. These are the things in terms of sustain you can do. Heavy attack is probably the easiest if you drop low and most commonly used. So let's take a look at all the parses. So as you can see, I've done a lot of parses, the one I showed at the beginning. You will see the whole thing in a second, but let's analyze like this one first with the 2 pets and see where most of our damage comes from. So you can understand like, okay, that's how it's built. Or where the damage comes from. So first, the stats on this target dummy. The big raid target dummy includes raiding buffs. So you get a lot of things that you usually don't get on the small one. So here you will have better sustain and so on, because it's all included, and here not. That's why everybody is doing the DPS testing on the big one, and you should too. Let's go to this. Spell damage almost 4844. That's with Siroria setup, by the way. Like this here. Siroria, Mother Sorrow, Morphed Infernal, and Maelstrom backbar. Basically the setup one. So, let's look at this. My average spell crit was 67%. And you can see, I had a lucky parse here. 74, 71, 72, 77, 74... Like, Jesus Christ, what's going on? Like, target dummy humpers probably... They're going off right now. That's like your dream parse. Why do I say that? Because most... Like, my average spell crit is 67. So that's my crit I should get. But it's way higher. That's a lucky parse. Most of the times this will be around 67%. So this was very lucky. And that's also what... Like, when you look target dummy videos... You always see these huge crazy parses. Some people farm a whole week, 4 hours per day. They hump the target dummy till they get that one juicy parse, and that's what gets uploaded. Okay? So if you have 2, 3, 4k less DPS than somebody else on a YouTube video, it doesn't matter. You might not do anything different, but RNGesus was with them, but not with you. Because you don't have time to hump a target dummy a full week. Keep that in mind. Blood for blood, this is our spammable. 24% of our damage came from this ability. Light attacks, 21%. So almost half of all our damage came from these 2 abilities. That's just insanely stupid. Pretty much, but that's how it is. I still think light attacks need to be tuned down a little bit. Because it's just too much. Like, heavy attacks should do more damage, light attacks should do less. But weaving should still be incentivized, right? Blood for blood, it's so strong. In a raid, it will not be that high, because you will notice in my parses, the blood for blood thingy, the lower your health is, the more damage it does. So I will not activate structured entropy till I'm very low health, so I get more out of the damage modifier. So that's why I say, like, on a Sorc, the vampire ability is less useful, because you just benefit less from it, like Crystal Frag procs and elemental weapon or force pulse is just almost equal. But blood for blood just makes sustain irrelevant. I shit you not, like it's actually quite hilarious. I did a target dummy parse and my buff would run out, this one, and I did not even notice it because this ability makes sustain so irrelevant. It's probably gonna get nerfed, to be honest. Like there is no way this is gonna stay like this. But anyway, enjoy it as long as it lasts. Then we have Atronach's Sep. That's our ultimate, the Storm Atro. Damage over time, 8.3k. And keep in mind, in a raid, when an ally activates the synergy of this bad boy, gets another 25% damage boost alongside your group member. Sorg just has everything. Beautiful. Sep. This is the bird. We actually never activated the ability, right? It's just there. It's free damage. 6k DPS for doing nothing except sitting there. Daedric Prey. 5400, which also buffs the Sep, the Atronach Sep, the normal Sep, the volatile pulse, the entropy touch, and all that stuff. Then the secondary pet. Overall, 7460 damage, because it's the pulse and the normal attack. Unstable Wall of Fire, 4100. Crystal Frags. We procced 17 of these. We had a pretty shitty... I mean, you can see, we had a lot of lucky crits up here and very shitty crits down here. Like 53, 59. That's way, way lower than it should be. So maybe the parse wasn't that lucky after all, I guess. But yeah, 4k damage for activating it 17 times. That's a lot. Burning. Burning comes from your flame enchantment. Usually it's around 2k. But the infernal, the maw, also, because it has a lot of fire abilities, it can actually also proc burning. That's why it's higher. Fire enchantment, again, 2k just from proccing. Structured entropy, fairly low, but we also don't have it active all the time. Then when we look at the pet damage, so let me see, yeah, that's it. Fire Jaws, Jackdaw, Fiery Breath. Yes, I think I didn't forget anything. Yep, that's like 3k damage. But it also adds another 2k burning, so it's like more like 5k in total. Concussion and the Atro impact damage, I guess. Yeah. There's a lot of things, and when we look blood for blood, max hit 82k, then the light attack 32k. So you see, if you don't learn how to weave properly, you're missing out on so much damage. That's the parse. When we look at the 0 pet parse, so this one was the 1 pet and this here is the 0 pet. It looks a little bit different because now I actually use the Mystic Orb and the Execute, you will see. And instead of the pets, I simply stacked more max Magicka. So I use the Bound Ages instead, like here, instead of the pets. I can show you pretty much. I think it was like this. Then I had my Execute ability on the front bar and the Orb on the back bar. That was my 0 pet setup. Again, blood for blood, light attack, make up the most of my damage. And then we have the Storm Atro on the back bar. This time we use the Other Morph Haunting Curse, Mystic Orb, the Execute, and so on. It's all, you will see it all in the parsing. Yeah. It's very similar. A lot of things. Anyway, let's check out the parses. On each parse you will see that I have my keyboard and mouse cam active, so you actually can see what kind of buttons I do press where, or like what buttons to have assigned where. On the mouse, left click, I basically spam that button and then I press the abilities like 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. I do weapon swap on the side button, on the front side button of the mouse, and I block on the back button of the side. I bash on right click, then I do dodge roll on T, I jump on space and my synergy button is on B. Potion is Q, and R is ultimate. But that's, you will see how I kind of move around with that stuff. Should be active during all the parses. Like mentioned before, at the bottom right side you always see the DPS and the light attacks per second, so you understand, okay, how high can you really go. And the higher the light attack per second, the better, because we don't have any channeled abilities. Like again, 0.9 would be a very good value to reach. Anyway, use the timestamps if you want to find the right parse with the right setup. It's all in the description below. We will see us in the beginner section again. Let's take a look at the beginner setup. Julianos, 4 Magnus, and 3 willpower. Join a guild, ask them to craft this stuff. Like, people are usually very helpful, and the setup is also on the website, in the third gear setup, the beginner setup. Probably easier to set it up than looking at the video here. Rotation, it's very simple. When we look at this, we only have the bird, because it's free damage anyway, so you never need to activate it. And then what we do is use normal potions. I slot in a light on both bars for Major Prophecy, so we get a 10% spell crit. We miss out on the spell damage buff because we use the Structured Entropy for blood, right? Because we need healing, but it doesn't matter that much. So what you want to do on the back bar is you apply Elemental Drain every second rotation, and then you use Blockade, Entropy, Daedric Prey. If Crystal Frag procs, you activate it, and now you just spam blood till the blockade on the back bar is off. You reapply it. Alongside with Daedric Prey, you spam blood. That's pretty much all you do. And then blockade turns off. You reapply it. Now we use Elemental Drain again on the dummy. Voila. Crystal Frag procs, you activate it. Now this round, blockade and entropy with curse. So it's a very simple rotation. You will see it in the target dummy parse. But again, this should only be like, if you can, you should always practice on the big target dummy anyway. That's why on the small target dummy you need to use Elemental Drain, because that buff is provided on the big one but not on the small one. So it kind of sucks a little bit. But anyway, I will show you the parses. the outfit. Before we start, please don't forget to subscribe. That would be much appreciated. You can always ask me questions on twitch.tv/alcasthq or on our community Discord, links in the description below. So what do I have here? Moongrave Fane epaulets, gloves, Shield of Sensual breeches, and we have Moongrave Fane robe, Shield of Sensual sash, Moongrave Fane shoes. This is the normal, I think it's Sunspire motif and the Maelstrom motif. I use Fire Drake's flame color and Legate's black. When we look at, I used the Tuzlet Bard hairstyle. Skin, Black Marrow Necromancer alongside Telvanni. And I think I had the face imprint of the Sichik Order alongside the Sichik body imprint. All these things, and that's what you should get more or less. So hopefully I could help you with this video. Yes, it was a little bit long, but it takes time to explain and showcase all the things. This is a very complicated game to master. Like always, check out the website alcasthq.com. Thanks for watching and have a nice day. Cheers.